Before I start my video, I would like to refer you all to a guy called Yuri Bezmenov. There are countless videos of him talking to a US talk show host, and in these videos he explains what's going on far better than I ever could, because I do believe we are witnessing the weakening of Western society, and that weakening has a purpose, and that purpose is sinister. And I very much believe the subject I am about to speak of is part of that agenda. Anyway, so what you see in front of you now is what is being sold as a group of women who are part of the British Army engagement team, and they were all delivering speeches about women in leadership event. Now, I know what you're all thinking, so I've got to be careful how I address this, for the obvious reasons. But I believe I'm allowed to talk about it. I should have an opinion about it. Now, these four people in uniform were there to give their lived experience speeches, and it was a question and answer session. And I'm more concerned with the person in uniform sat on the far left, excuse the pun. Now, that person is Warrant Officer Class 2, Deborah Penny. Now, Deborah Penny became the first transgender soldier to serve on the front line. And Deborah Penny took part in the lived experience of women in the forces during the event at Sandhurst Royal Military College. Now, for those watching abroad, Sandhurst is the equivalent of West Point in America. We train our officers there. Now, Deborah Penny has served in Northern Ireland, Ulster, Iraq and Afghanistan in a career spanning 40 years. And Deborah Penny is also the warrant officer for diversity and inclusion in army engagement. Now, that's commendable. This person served on the front line. Ulster wasn't easy. I'm talking about experience. Afghanistan and Iraq weren't easy tours either. Again, I'm talking from experience. Now, from what I can see online, Deborah Penny transitioned recently. And one thing puzzles me. After 40 years, you're still a warrant officer after 40 years, and still not Regimental Sergeant Major. Because in my regiment, and most of the regiments as well in the British Army, if you've done your 22 years, you've gotten to Regimental Sergeant Major, and when you've done your 2, sometimes 4-year post, 2 years in a training establishment and 2 years at your regiment, you then get commissioned to captain. And I've known members of the Royal Welsh Fusiliers who went on to Major, and that's less than 40 years. So what the hell is this guy still hovering as a W02 after 40 years? It's quite baffling. He should be an officer by now. But anyway, it is what it is. Now, people do have a problem with Deborah Penny sat on this panel giving a speech of a lived experience as a woman in command. Because when Deborah Penny was on the front lines commanding, Deborah Penny hadn't transitioned, which means Deborah Penny identified as a different gender. And so the other problem I have with this is that I am convinced Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and every other rogue nation that's looking at our military, they're laughing their tits off. Now, it's woke political correctness that has allowed this to happen. All this has done is contributed to our military. The British Army, once the greatest in the world, is now a political weak mess. You don't see the Russian army, the military, engaging in this nonsense. You don't see the Chinese military engaging in this nonsense, or the Iranians for that matter, or the North Koreans. These countries spend good money on teaching men to fight. And yes, alright, okay, the Russians and the Chinese are seeped in communist politics, but that's where it ends. They don't have gender ideology sweeping through their ranks. Look at Deborah Penny sat there with a skirt on, while all the rest of them are sat there on that stage with their legs crossed to preserve their dignity, whereas with Deborah Penny, I'm pretty sure they can see her hand grenades. I'm telling you now, folks, this country, this island, is ripe for the picking. And by wasting time, money and valuable resources on gender ideology, rather than how to defend the nation, we are literally playing into the enemy's hands, and it'll happen, folks, sadly. And there we go, that's my video. Hope you like. Please let me know what you think in the comments. And until the next time, Roger Trout.